Hi everyone, welcome to Bama Blind. I'm Beverly, and as promised today, I'm going to talk about stress and stress management and a few techniques and strategies for managing stress. I shared in my last video that I've been under some stressors that are not in my control, but they affect me, they affect people that are around me. And I typically am viewed as a person that stays pretty calm during stressful situations, and it hasn't always been that way. Um, I've always had a very calm and stabilizing affect. That means that what you see looks pretty chilled and pretty non-stressed, and I am. But as a young person, there was a lot of internal stress, a lot of internal anxiety, a lot of things going on that I had not assimilated, nor had I comprehend, much less developed any strategy to work on. As I've gone through my last decades, I've been actually helped by being severely visually impaired because I deal with stressors every day, and I just can't live in a state of chaos and drama. And my life would be chaos and drama, I think, if I allowed my lack of vision to dictate my life and my experiences. So over a lifetime, I have developed some skills, and they come across, and what's inside me matches what's outside of me. And that's really important to me because the two are congruent, and I don't feel like inside I'm a bubble of nerves and outside I'm just faking it. It's pretty much calm through and through and stable through and through. And what that does is it allows me to be a support person, a support network, so to speak, for so many people that I love and care about. And when I'm missing my vision, there are so many things that I am not dependable about, like transportation. I can't take someone here, someone there, and I can't fix my granddaughter's hair. I don't know how to touch up her makeup or things like that. So my position in my immediate family, my extended family, my friends, my neighbors, is that I'm a person that people can come to and talk to, and they don't get a lot of drama. They don't get a lot of external stressors from my personality. So I'm going to share with you today just some of the things that I do as a person. And again, I think that being blind has helped me perfect these stress management techniques because I really, truly use them every single day. And I'm going to give you an example of something that happened 2 days ago. I'll go through my stress management technique with this particular example, and it's really such a common thing that occurs with me. So the other day I was out walking with Gretchen, my guide dog, and we were in a familiar place. And because we were in a familiar place, she was on almost autopilot. If you're a guide dog user, you kind of know what that is. Okay, so I target a pole with her, a traffic pole, and then at that point I decide, are we going left, right, or forward after that? We could certainly turn around and go back the same way we came. But we get to this pole, and I'm so proud of her because she's just done an excellent job walking about a half a mile to get to this point. And I click and treat her, and then I'm ready to go to our next targeted place. And I really wanted to go to a special place, and I had that in mind. It was all in my plan. And I suddenly realized this is not the pole that I thought it was. So here I am standing at this gigantuan traffic pole, and traffic is passing in places that it's not supposed to be passing. I can't see traffic. I can only hear traffic. but the traffic should be right in front of me and on my left shoulder paralleling me. And suddenly I've identified traffic as behind me and kind of paralleling me, but kind of crossing me at the same time. And so in the moment, that is, if you are blind, you kind of understand this. If you aren't blind, you can only close your eyes and imagine that if you're disoriented and you hear cars traveling at 20, 30, even 35, 40 miles an hour, and they're probably within 10 feet of you, that's a pretty big stressor, only to realize you have no idea where you are. So my very first step in that situation and so many other situations is to shelter in place. I call it sip, sip, sip. Okay, that's my little clue to myself. It's known in the general population as shelter in place, and horrendously we realize that shelter in place means take care of yourself, your physical body immediately. And I call it SIP, S-I-P, because I stop, I inhale, and I pray. And pray can mean connect with that higher power, connect with that inner self, connect with that strength that you have that's inside, that you have to pull up now in a split second. It is a moment that is much, much faster than a second on a clock. But within that brief moment, you stop, you inhale, you breathe, because you really need your oxygen right now. The tendency is to exhale and not breathe. You know, people hold their breath under stress. No, you stop, you inhale, and you pray. You connect. You pull up that strength, and you need it right now. Okay, so in that, it's also shelter in place. You don't move. If I had moved in that position, I could have stepped into traffic. I could have stepped off of a curb. I could have stepped into a manhole. I had no idea where I was. So to protect physically myself, I had to stop, shelter in place. And that's what you do first. You just do it. Then you move to the second stage of stress management. The second stage is assess, evaluate, assess. So in the moment that I was not knowing where I was, I stopped so that I wouldn't be in traffic. I knew there was traffic behind me. I knew there was traffic somewhere crossing diagonally in front of me, not parallel, and not completely crisscross. So it was not where it was supposed to be. There are no diagonal streets where I live. So I knew I knew I had to stop and inhale and pray, connect. And so then I began the assessment. The assessment is in place. I did not move a muscle. I stayed exactly oriented where I was. And I tried to determine at that point, okay, what the traffic that's crossing in front of me, where could it be coming from? Where could it be going to? The traffic behind me, was it going both, right to left and left to right? Was it a lot of traffic or very little bit of traffic? So that helped me determine where I was. Then I tried to look and see, okay, where is the sun in the sky? To see, okay, am I facing north, south, east, or west? Unfortunately for me, this particular day, it was completely overcast. And so for me, I just get a lot of white snow anyway. And when it's overcast, that's just kind of what I get. So the sun didn't help me. The assessment of trying to figure out where I was, I listened for every clue possible. Then I very carefully probed with my foot. I knew the pole was right next to me, so I kind of probed around. I had Gretchen sit because I knew we were out of traffic. So that's shelter in place. So I was doing my assessment, and I heard a truck, which was not even near where the traffic in front of me was and not near where the traffic behind me was. It was idling to my front and far, far to the right, all by itself. I couldn't hear any people talking. So I was disoriented, completely disoriented. But I had stopped, I had inhaled, and I had prayed. I had connected with that calm self that said, okay, we're going to go through these steps. Now, true enough, all of these steps are lightning fast. They happened very quickly. I know I'm drawing them out. Once I realized that I could not get any further than the assessment point, then I had to come up with a plan. Okay, what is my plan? I have to come up with a plan. That's step 3, strategize, plan. Okay, my plan at that particular moment, I could have done several things. I could have just sat there. I could have just sat down. If I was not ready to progress in this stress management situation, if I was still stuck in the first section, if I were still stuck in the shelter in place, if I were still stuck in the stop, inhale, and pray because my adrenaline was going too much, then that's okay. Just stop. Stay in that position. Stay in that first position. I could have assessed, gone to the second stage of stress management and realized I can't handle this right now. So you back up and go back to the first. You go back to the shelter in place because your assessment didn't work. So the assessment phase is simply that. It didn't work for me because I still could not figure out where I was. So I sheltered in place, I stayed put, and I went to the third phase, which was an action, a plan, a strategy. And my plan was to find someone else that could help me assess. And I learned a long time ago that I always carry my cell phone, and there's an app called Be My Eyes. There are people that are in my contacts that I can call at a moment's notice. I happen to know one of those people who was not at work, who was not busy doing something else, was not in a meeting, and I contacted them quickly via FaceTime. They are also somebody that's very familiar with my town area. So I knew in a moment that that person, rather than the Be My Eyes person, would know exactly where I am if I pointed my camera around. So I hit the FaceTime, got very, very quick information about where I was. And once the person described to me where I was totally not where I thought I was. I had no clue how Gretchen had gotten me there. And again, I was kind of on autopilot, but I went from the take action phase to the carry out action phase. So I went from the planning, which was talking with this person. Okay, now if I go to my right or my right, which is a right, then I will be on a sidewalk that is familiar to me. And that's exactly what I did. So I moved to the fourth stage, which is take action. Do something that will remedy the stressful situation. This entire venture probably took no more than, I would say, 2 minutes, 120 seconds. It might have been a little bit longer in connecting with the FaceTime, but that's how fast I moved from the stop and shelter in place to the assessment evaluation phase. What is the problem? Can I figure out what the problem is? What to do about it? The third is plan a strategy, and the fourth is to carry out a strategy. And I was right back on track, and Gretchen and I finished our walk. Now that happens to me. I was out this morning. It happened this morning. You know, I had actually another plan. So the last thing The very last stage of the stress management was different in this situation. Maybe the second and third, the third and fourth were different, but all four stages of managing a problem which causes stress are the same. I will add another example to that because it's a physical example. It could, for some people, cause major stress. That right there could have caused major stress for me or for any person that was disoriented. And instead of panicking, I know the steps to go through and I practice those steps. So I'll give you another example. Yesterday, I know I've uploaded a video recently of me doing my fall decorating and cleaning. And yesterday I was reorganizing my china and my dishes because I do pull out china and things at this time of year. We do have people over, and so I was on my ladder as always, and then I transferred from a ladder to the countertop, and I was up at about the 9.5, 10-foot level in my kitchen, standing on a countertop, and I had my hands full of good dishes, my good dishes that I was kind of swapping out, bringing down. And I had my shoes on. I was in work mode, and all of a sudden, I don't know what it was. It was a porcelain ornament came sliding out of a Christmas box that was way, way up top. It smashed to the countertop. It being fine porcelain, shattered in a billion pieces. And I know from experience that that is like razor sharp. It's not safety glass, it's razor sharp. So here I'm standing completely paralyzed. But instead of a panic, because a panic will send you way around all your 4 steps of problem solving. A panic mode kind of doesn't allow you to get into the framework of now managing what just happened. So instead of pressing the panic mode, I stopped, I inhaled, I prayed, I connected. I said, okay, shelter in place, do not move until you're ready to assess. So I stood there for about 3 seconds, because time almost stands still, but it really flies. So I stood there for about 3 seconds, and I realized my hands are full. There's nothing I can do because my hands are my eyes. And if you're blind, you know this. So my hands were filled with good dishes. The dishes had to be placed in a very careful place that I wouldn't bump them now, because now I have to go into another mode, which is assess what damage I've done. So after I sheltered in place, I stopped, I inhaled, I prayed, connected. I went immediately into assessment mode. The assessment was all surrounding where I'm standing is shards of glass. I think they went into the sink. I think they went on the floor. I heard it. So I kind of know that this is going to be a big mess. So I've got that part assessment. I've also assessed that I'm wearing shoes, so I'm pretty safe. That's cool. Half the time I'm not in shoes. So that was cool. I was, in shoes that would not be, dangerous to my feet. Okay, so I placed the dishes down. That was an action phase. And then I assessed, okay, let me find the ladder, because I'm standing up on a countertop, a granite countertop. So the ladder is somewhere behind me, and it's going to let me kind of go laterally and then back down the ladder again. And I was kind of excited because I knew that I had shoes on and I wasn't going to step in glass and cut myself. I've done that before. I've stepped on nails, I've stepped on glass, I've stepped on all kinds of things because I can't see them. But in this case, I assessed that I could get down off of the counter and then continue to assess the damage done and how to clean it up. So once I got down off of the ladder, I began to assess, which is part of the action plan actually. I began to assess how broken the pieces were, and they were in tiny little shards, and where they were by using a paper towel that I got without hurting myself and scraping up all the broken glass into a pile and figuring out, okay, this is how I'm going to clean this up. So I was developing a strategy in my head on how to get rid of this dangerous environment, because I can't do anything else. I can't go back to my organizational task. I can't do any cooking or food prep. I can't allow Gretchen into the kitchen. I can't do any of those things until I get rid of this mess that was unexpected. I probably had control over it, but it was unexpected. I didn't expect to pull something off and have it smash to the ground and stop everything I'm doing and clean it up. So I went to my third step, which is strategize. How are you going to get this stuff cleaned up? And once I planned that out in my brain, then I carried out that plan. I went to my pantry with my shoes on. I was really in a total state of gratitude because you really don't know how many times I walk around the house in slippers, socks, whatever I could put on my feet to keep my feet warm, but not shoes. But I had on shoes. So I was able to get to my pantry, get out my little handheld vacuum cleaner that does the countertops, it does shelves, it does furniture, and it does baseboards, and it does floors. And I plugged that thing in, and I started at the furthest point out and just started vacuuming. Now, I usually will use my hands, because my hands are my eyes, to see what, if I had spilled sugar, it would have been a totally different environment, because sugar isn't physically dangerous to you. It's a big mess, but I wouldn't have been in physical danger. So I would have spent less time in that beginning stage, which is shelter in place. Stop, inhale, pray. Just, get your bearings. Then I went to the assessment phase. I assessed, okay, where am I? Where is the danger? Went to the third, strategizing, how am I going to get out of this situation? And then the fourth was carry out the situation. And so for me, and I can tell you, I might use these techniques with people that I know and love 3 to 4 times a week. I know in my last video I mentioned someone that was close to me being affected by being evicted. And those are stressors that you might have control over at sometimes in your life, and sometimes in your life you have no control over that. I know this family had no control over that. We have been thrown into a pandemic where things have been hurled at us as a population that we have no control over. And the fact that you have no control over those things actually are anxiety causing stressors. So first you have to realize I don't have control over the fact that I don't have income. I don't have control over the fact that there is no place to work right now. I don't have any control over the fact that there is no one to hire me, and I don't have any control over the fact that there's no income coming in anywhere for me to pay my mortgage or my rent. So those things that you have no control over result in a horrendous event that causes stress. And when that stress hits, when you're either served the notice or you're notified verbally, whatever the case may be, you stop. You shelter in place because you have adrenaline pumping. There is no telling what you would do as a human being if you don't take the time to do the very first step, shelter in place. Stop, inhale, and pray. The very moment that you get this information. And then after that, assess. Once you know that you have reached way down in and you've gotten that calmness that you've developed, and you have to develop that, then you can move on to the assessment phase. Then you can move on to the strategy phase, and then you can move on to the action phase. But that very first phase, that that shelter in place. If it's a major life event, that shelter in place might last a day, not a split second like Gretchen and I, disoriented. That shelter in place might last a week. You might be in the point that you just can't leave your house because you are trying to process emotional information. You're sheltering in place. In that case, you take as good care of yourself as possible. That's sheltering in place. That means that you're avoiding physical danger, additional psychological danger, and emotional danger. So let's say that you're given that information, and let's say that the person gives you, 7 days. You're evicted, okay? You don't have a place to live. You're evicted. They give you 7 days, and they really don't care what your strategy is. They just want you out. So 7 days, you have some leeway to shelter in place, to get hopefully maybe a night's sleep, to get some nutrition on board, to hydrate, to get to a point where maybe you are listening to some calming music. Maybe you have learned to meditate. Maybe you are very, very prayerful and you connect with God. Maybe you read scripture to ground yourself. That's that connection. So you stop, you breathe, you inhale, and you connect. And that, again, that might take a day, it might take 2 days. You might have that luxury, I call it. Then you get to the assessment phase. Here's where I am, and I'm not going to have a place to live. And once you get to that assessment phase, that, okay, I have no money coming in and I'm going to have no roof over my head, then you move to the planning phase. You start strategizing. You look at every option under the sun. You brainstorm. You think of all the possibilities, and once you come up with maybe even 2 or 3 possibilities, then you begin to act. So you might pick up the phone and call your parents. You might go next door to your very, very close neighbor who you know has a spare bedroom. You might call your child who you know is a working person that has an income and has, a spare place on the floor that you can sleep. All of those are strategies, and now you start working on those things. Now, once you get to that 4th strategy, I'm going to tell you, these stress management techniques can start all over again. Yes, you can go back to the first one, go through the second one, go through the third one, go through the 4th one, because each step you take might require stress management and trying not to panic. I always look at things in an analogous situation, and that's developed over time too. I've always enjoyed listening to people's analogy because I get it when they tell me analogies. My analogy for these stages happens to be the train analogy. So I want you to picture a train. A train is moving along a track, and it's going just like time is. It doesn't stand still. Okay, your train is moving along, and you have a caboose at the end of the train. You have a 3rd car, you have a 2nd car, and you have an engine pulling the 3 cars behind it. Okay, so this train is moving along, and when you are in that phase 1, that stop, inhale, and pray, that shelter in place. Both are SIP, S-I-P. Sip, okay. Shelter in place. I consider yourself in the caboose at that point, okay? You're just hanging out there. You're not doing anything dangerous. You're just there, trying to gather your thoughts. And once you gather your thoughts enough to move to the 2nd phase, you will move to that car that's ahead of you, still traveling down the track like time is traveling, it's moving on, but you're now moved to that second car, which is assessment. And once you've assessed your situation, you can now start building strategies or plans. That means you move to the next train car. And once you develop some plans, you move right on to that engine, which is the whole power of the entire train. It's pulling the train. So you move to the engine and you're now in action. You're a locomotive. You are in action. You are doing something after going from the back of the train all the way to the front. Now, sometimes you have to leave that engine and walk through the second car, walk through the third car, and get back to the stop place. You have to stop, reconnect, gather your thoughts, and then progress to the assessment phase again. If you've already gone through the assessment phase for that second event, whatever that is, then move on to the second car back, which is the planning phase. You're ready now to plan, and all you're lacking is the momentum to carry out that action. So if you can systematically do these things, you can get through so many stressful situations. I talked to a close person to me who has got some just free-floating anxiety going on. And like I said, I will just sit and take the time to talk to the person. I will just talk with them. And I don't necessarily tell them what we're doing. I just kind of lead them through these things. And then once we get to the fact that they can understand that their situation isn't hopeless, then we might work on, okay, when you leave here and you're not talking to me anymore, how do you do these things? How do you implement these things? So I was talking to this person, it's really, really close to me, and they have this free-floating anxiety. Everything has just kind of made them either depressed, forlorn, anxious, and in that case, we stopped. We acknowledged that. We inhaled. We prayed. We said, okay, this is where you are. Okay, so the first thing let's do is assess. Let's assess what might be causing this. So let's talk about the stressors. We're doing an assessment. We're just talking about the stressors. The stressors are that this person no longer has a workplace to go to. They're working 100% from home. They have no social outlets, and they're a very social person, so they can't go out and help, interact with people. That release has been taken away with COVID. We have no control over that. The person had double the duty of their own work schedule because someone was out on medical leave. So this person is at home, isolated with no social outlets, doing double work instead of their own single work, which they're paid nicely for, but they're with no extra pay or having to do this other person's work who can't help it, but they're out, with an illness. And they've been out for over 4 or 5 weeks. So this has been going on for a long time. This person already, we assessed these things. This person already had strategized, and they didn't even know it. They didn't know that they had already developed strategies and they had already implemented strategies. So this person had already decided they were going to go to bed at the exact same time every night, even if they couldn't fall asleep right away. This person already decided that they were going to fill their room with a scent and with low sounds that calmed them at night. This person already decided that they were going to get up early and they were going to work out, physically exercising the body. This person already decided that they were going to take a mid-morning break, even though they're all by themselves and they could continue to work on their computer straight through. This person had already done so many things to overcome this generalized anxiety. So what we came up with was more strategies, because the anxiety is still there. There's a generalized anxiety that the world's not the same, and there's nothing we can do about that, except for go back to our very beginning, shelter in place, take care of yourself. This person had already started all of that. This person had been doing those self-care activities for weeks. And so that was probably keeping this person in check much longer than had they not done those things. So many people will go into a panic mode and a dramatic mode, and then they can't assess, they can't strategize, and they certainly can't implement. This person had already gone through several of those. We worked out some more strategies, and this person was so willing to say, yes, I'm going to implement those strategies because I can do that. I can't get rid of the virus. I can't go into my job and be back with my coworkers and go to lunch with them and socialize and meet my friends after work. I can't do any of that. So we just strategize, what can you do? Let's figure out what can you do, and let's put those things into action. We will try those things. If those things don't work, they might work a little bit. But if they don't work, you go back to the assessment. That's okay. You just leave the engine and go back through those train cars back to the second to the last car, and you say, okay, I'm going to do some more assessment. Now it's time to move to the strategizing, the planning phase, and then to the carrying out phase, the locomotion phase, the phase where you're actually driving this train. And you can get to the point, and I think that is why I feel calm inside. I might seem calm outside. I typically am calm. I typically am very stable. And I think it's because I've learned to go through these phases, and they can be done. I think it's really harder to do them in a drawn out time frame, but you can do them in a split second, and you can do them in a long drawn out, like with COVID. We're working on, I believe, month 9 or month 10 for some people. So you've had to move about this train, still going down the track, many, many times over the past 9 or 10 months. I want to add one more thing before I end, and that is that this scenario is certainly applicable to someone who has lost their sense of sight or has lost some of their vision. Anyone who's had a functional change in any way. It could be hearing, it could be speech, it could be physicality. First is shelter in place. You take care of yourself. There's nothing you can do. I'll take the example of losing your sight. You go to sleep one night and you wake up the next day and you don't have sight. There are many people that this has happened to for many different reasons. You shelter in place. You take care of yourself. You stop, you inhale, you pray. And it might be that that's all you can do for 4 weeks, is just be. You are just existing. That's okay, because that's the first step. That's okay. And then the second step, once you have processed that, the second step is to assess your situation. If you've lost your sight, you're assessing the situation. Can I still do this? What can I not do? Who can I connect with for help? What are the things that I can do to move out of this assessment phase into a strategy phase? And then once you do that, you can strategize till the cows come home. You can develop all kinds of plans. And that's not a dangerous thing, because you physically, let's just say you've lost your sight, you physically aren't in danger as long as you are planning and strategizing. Once you get from that point into the locomotion, you have to have the skills necessary to pull the rest of the train, to be that engine. So once you get out of the planning, the strategy train car and move on to the engine, you've got to be ready now to move on. And that's okay. You might move on for another 10 miles down the road until you realize, I got to reassess. So you go back to that third car and you assess, where am I? What am I doing? How did I get here? What can I do to get out of this place? And you move on to the strategy planning and the program development, and develop a strategy for dealing with the thing that hit you, that stopped you in the first place, which in this case, I'm talking about sight loss. So by the time you get to that strategy point, you have decided, I can get up and learn these things safely on my own, in my own house. But there are also things that I can't learn on my own, in my own house. So I will have to call someone, whether that be vocational rehabilitation or Department of Rehab Blind Services, or American Council for the Blind, or any of the blind groups, the Lions Club, Lighthouse for the Blind. There are so many resources out there who can help you develop those strategies and plans. Even family members. You know, if you want to learn to go into your kitchen and wash dishes, first you have to learn to get to your kitchen from wherever you are, and then you practice that skill. You make sure your environment is safe, you practice that skill, and at that point you've already implemented, you've already moved through all of the train cars up to the locomotive, and you're now doing something. You're doing something and you don't even have vision. And that's how you deal with these stressors. Now, once you've achieved that goal, particularly, you go back. You know, it might not be the caboose. It might not be shelter in place. You might need to go back to the caboose. You might have anxiety and depression because of your situation. So it's okay to go back and shelter in place. To go backwards to the end of the train. You're still on the train. You're still moving. You're still going somewhere, but you've moved from the front of the train to the back of the train, and now you are taking care of yourself. You're getting some good night's sleeps. You're getting your nutrition. You're doing things that are calming to yourself, whether that might be listening to music, listening to a book, reading a book, eating nutritious foods, changing your clothes every day. Those kinds of things help you get through that, okay, I'm just going to shelter in place because I can't even assess right now where I am. And once you get to that calming place, you stop, you inhale, you pray. And that, again, that could be 5 minutes, it could be 5 days, it could actually be 5 months. So don't feel bad if you're in the caboose for a while. That's okay. Cabooses are nice. They're really nice. And they help us. They help us kind of see where we have gone. And all the while, you're just moving along the track. In our analogy of the train, you're moving along the track. You're still progressing, but you're taking care of yourself. So I hope this has been something that you can take with you. These are skills that I learned. They are things that I've put into words and tried to manage on my own. And they truly do help me in so many daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, lifelong situations. They work for every stage that I just talked about. So If you want to review this at any point, please feel free. And if you have techniques that you have developed or that you have learned about through therapy, we haven't mentioned therapy because this video is not about therapy, but counseling and therapy is so beneficial. That's an action phase. You're actually sitting in the engine of the train, the locomotive. When you are in therapy, you are driving the train. So please think of therapy and counseling as the last stage of coping with stress, because you're doing something actively. That is an action. You've planned to go to therapy and you carried it out. So please don't hesitate to contact professionals, whether that be a doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist, social worker, therapist, friend, neighbor, relative, grandparent, child, anyone at all, because at that point you're sitting in the locomotive. So I hope this has helped some of you. And if you have stress, like I said, and you've been through some of these things and you would like to share them in the comments with anyone, especially me, please feel like sharing. If you like to keep it private, that's wonderful. I just hope that you have gotten something out of this that you might not have known about. If I can reach one person through this video, I'm thrilled. If I reach 10, then those 10 people can share these kinds of experiences with other people. So I wish for you a very calm and stable day and week, and one that is not filled with drama and panic. And if you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below. And if you like this kind of content, I do some of these things periodically. This is informational. It's not entertainment, and it's not Gretchen and I out walking around. So just stay tuned for Bama Blind, and I hope you have a very safe and healthy and happy day. Bye, everybody.